Late 90s, early 2000s, late, I think I came back to Erie in 98, something like that, something in that range right there. I got one question. How do I switch through those slides? Do you want me to
Point at
switch
me.
through?
Point at me and I got
I
it.
will. So, you want to get into it?
Without further ado.
Let's get into it, man. So the first thing I want to do, and I don't know if that camera's kind of...
You're good. You're good.
First thing I want to do is I want to thank everybody for asking me to come here. I'm really kind of excited to be here. It's really nice to see friends that I haven't seen in a long time, and hopefully make some new friends today. It's always great to see my buddies hanging out with me too. So number one, thanks so much for asking me to do this today. Number two, a lot of you might not know it, but I'm a veteran too. I'm actually a Navy brat. My father was a Chief Petty Officer in the United States Navy. He was involved in naval intelligence communications, so we were always stationed at the embassies, where my father would have to brief generals and admirals on what type of intelligence they were receiving throughout the work that they did. I was actually born in Paris, France. I've lived in London, England. I've lived in Seoul, Korea. I've lived in Norfolk, Virginia. My father retired when I was right around 12 years old. And we moved to Holland, New York. Most of my family's from Western New York, the West Seneca area in Western New York. So those are kind of my roots where I grew up learning how to fish. I'm not too sure if my father knew it or not, but there was a wild brown brook trout stream within a bike ride from the house that we moved into when he retired. And my mother would take me to the library in East Aurora, and I would check out books from Joe Brooks, written by Joe Brooks. Anybody here know who Joe Brooks was? Raise your hand if you know who Joe Brooks was. There you go. Really one of the fathers of fly fishing. So one day I started plucking chicken feathers from my pillow. If you remember having chicken feathers in your pillows, I used to pluck chicken feathers from my pillow when I go downstairs and I tie a monstrosity of a streamer fly. And my dad had stocked some trout into our pond behind the house, and I slapped that streamer off the dock. And when it got wet, it started to sink and twitching. Those feathers would move and undulate. Boom! A rainbow trout came up and smacked it right in front of me, and that's how I got hooked on fly fishing. So I was also in the United States Air Force myself. I think I joined 82 or 83. Yeah, we're Sally's compared to the rest of the servicemen, I'll admit it. I don't know, they took really good care of me when I was in the Air Force. I was a 39230 maintenance scheduler right on the flat line. My office overlooked the flat line at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida. And that was a blessing to live down there and learn how to catch saltwater fish on the flat line. So I want to thank you guys very much for being here. Next slide, please. So I want to thank Barry and Kathy Beck. They've come up and fished with me for a few times for the photography. And I want to thank Jack Hammerhand for the photography. I don't know if anybody here knows who Jack is. He was a photojournalist for the Erie Times News. And we've always collaborated on any projects that I've done with magazines or books. So Presque State Park is Pennsylvania's most visited state park, and believe it or not, Presque State Park can get more visitors every year than Yellowstone. Approximately, I think, 4 million people visit Presque State Park. Now, thankfully, most of them come up from Pittsburgh or the other metropolitan areas like Cleveland or Buffalo to swim on the beaches and to go to Walden. That's where most of the people are coming from. But the bay itself has really turned into a world-class freshwater fishery. I've been fortunate enough to be able to be fishing it for over 25 years. What a lot of people don't know is that Presque Bay, if you want to look at it from this perspective, Presque Bay itself could be responsible for us becoming a nation. The reason why is because the United States naval fleet in the Great Lakes was built in Presque Bay to fight the War of 1812. And if the naval fleet that was built in Erie, Pennsylvania on Presque Bay didn't control the Great Lakes supply lines, we might not be a nation right now. So Erie, Pennsylvania, a lot of people don't realize this, Erie, Pennsylvania has a historical significance to us becoming a country. Next slide, please. So the peninsula was formed between 12,000 and 3,500 years ago as glaciers retreated north into the valley, which is now occupied by Lake Erie. Newly eroded sand was moved by wind and currents that deposited material into a 7-mile-long, 32,000 acre sand peninsula. Presque Peninsula is just basically a sandbar that juts out Lake Erie. Became a state park in 1921, and in some years can get as many as 4 million visitors. It's a nationally recognized destination for bird watching. When you drive out there, you see everybody out there with cameras. This group over here, cameras on tripods, taking pictures of birds. The peninsula is actually part of the Atlantic Flyway. As many as 339 species of birds can be viewed during their migrations. Next one, please. This is an egret. Egrets migrate through the peninsula. Next one, please. When you start hearing the red-winged blackbirds holding on to stalks in the cattail marshes on the peninsula, to me, that signals it's time to go fishing. Of course, you want to pay attention to water temperatures, but when I started here, I can't verbally describe that call of a red-winged blackbird. I tried to put it in words, I really can't, but it's that unique, high-pitched call. And when I hear those red-winged blackbirds out on the peninsula, that says, Carl, it's time to start fishing out here. Next one, please. So, Presque State Park, one of the most visited state parks, we already said that. This is a boat that I used to have. It's a 17-foot beaver tail. My kind of goal when I first started fishing out there was to bring Florida Keys style fly fishing to Presque Bay. But I soon learned that I'm not built for standing up on a poling platform and poling on the bay. Next one. I'll get back to that later because I've almost fallen off those poling platforms. And it's such hard work doing it. I have a new boat now. It's a 20-foot Carolina JVX. I got a remote control electric on the bow. All I have to do is push a button. Barry Beck really kind of made fun of me getting up on that platform and poling. Come on, Carl, pull it down, pull it down. I'm like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'd rather have a bigger boat because the weather can get really bad out there and it can come up quick. I'd rather have a bigger boat. I'd rather have a safer boat. And I'd rather not get up on a poling platform and pull that boat around. So my whole gig of bringing saltwater fly fishing to Erie, PA, because of that boat, I said I don't want to do that anymore, and I went out and bought a better vessel. This is a map of Presque Bay and the peninsula. Later on, I'm going to go through this map, and I'm going to tell you exactly where you can catch the different species of fish on the bay. I got it right here to talk about wind direction. We got to talk about wind direction on the bay right away. Because wind direction, if you're a fly fisherman, really kind of dictates where you can fish out there, doesn't it? It dictates where you can fish out there. So east is over here, west is over here. If we have easterly winds, I don't like fishing an easterly wind on Presque Bay. A lot of people say, one of the old fishing sayings is when the wind's from the east, the fish bite the least. Well, why does the wind from the east make the fish bite the least on Presque Bay? The reason is because it's blowing cold lake water into the bay itself. And if you're fly fishing for warm water species, that influx of cold weather shuts down warm water species. So wind from the east, the fish bite the least. It's probably, if you got a hard east wind, go fish Elk Creek because there's plenty of smallmouth in Elk Creek too. Westerly winds. Westerly winds are great for fishing. A westerly wind pushing this way across the screen leaves virtually the entire shoreline on the south side of Presque Peninsula fishable. Northwest winds, even better. This whole shoreline that you can wade is blocked from a northwest wind. So you have calm water, calm conditions. North winds, lots of areas to fish on the north wind. South winds make it tough, especially if you're out in a boat and you're wade fishing on the bay. South winds are all blowing this way, which tends to really push the surf and push the wave action into the entire south side of the peninsula. It can make the water muddy, it can add a lot of debris into those areas. So south wind, where do you want to go? You want to go on the city side. Now there's lots of city side accesses that you can fish. Not really wadeable to an extent. We used to be able to come down Summerheim Road and wade fish in the head of the bay. I don't think you can do that anymore, but there's a lot of piers and jetty areas where you can actually fish on the south side of the bay without getting your feet wet. There's particularly one spot here by the Chestnut Street boat launch that has a little rock jetty sticking out right there. You can catch a lot of smallmouth off that rock jetty right there. So south wind, city side, maybe not wadeable, but you can fish it from a boat. And Sons of Lake Erie has made a lot of great public access areas where all the marinas and things like that are. Okay, next slide please. Habitats. The game fish, or warm water game fish, which we're talking about today, they live in a variety of freshwater habitats. The freshwater habitats on Presque Bay can go from one extreme to another. You have, the huge Lake Erie watershed. We have a lagoon watershed. We have a bay watershed, and we have bays within the main bay watershed. Next one. So most of the fly fishing on the peninsula, if you don't have a boat, don't think that you can't catch a lot of fish, because you can catch a lot of fish on the peninsula just wade fishing. Now I have a boat now because I like to move around, but years and years ago, I would guide wade fishing, and we caught plenty of fish. A boat might be a little bit more versatile now, but you can catch a ton of fish wade fishing. Anybody recognize where all that is? Anybody here recognize that? Nobody? That's Thompson's Bay. Thompson's Bay has excellent wade fishing. There used to be sandbars where we used to be able to go way the hell out there. But Thompson's Bay is an influx of water, comes in and comes out. And those sandbars in areas that we used to fish, they sometimes change on a yearly basis. So be careful wading on Thompson's Bay because there's a lot of big drop-offs. But much of the bay is available to the wading fly fishermen. Next one, please. The lagoons, great early season largemouth bass and pike habitat. Some of the best largemouth bass fishing, topwater largemouth bass fishing I've ever had in my life has been in the lagoons. Now the lagoons, can't really wade fish back there, but there's a lot of trails that go back into the different arms and bays in the lagoons, and those can all be wade fished, but you have to, go for a little bit of walk to get back in there. Absolutely spectacular topwater action for largemouth bass in the spring before the lagoons get all weeded up. Also, there's lots of bowfin back in the lagoons, and I'll get to bowfin here in a minute. Next one, please. So a great way to access the lagoons, to get farther back in there, are with a couple of kayaks. Take a couple of kayaks back in there, wear some waders. There's areas in the lagoons where the bottom is soft, but most of the banks are pretty hard sand, so you can get out of your kayak and you do a lot of wade fishing back there. And when you look at the habitat, look at that habitat. What does that tell you? That tells you largemouth bass, northern pike. It's not smallmouth habitat. It also tells me that that's bowfin habitat. Next one. Misery Bay. Anybody know why Misery Bay is called Misery Bay?
A whole bunch of people died.
Denny?
Because those people that built our fleet suffered there in the spring after 1812.
Yeah, Misery Bay, when the naval fleet, the Great Lakes United States Naval Fleet, was stuck in Erie, Pennsylvania, and back then they had real winters, and the naval fleet basically was stationed right in Misery Bay, and a lot of those sailors passed away, and they would actually be buried by cutting a hole through the ice and the body thrown through that hole in the ice. That's how they got rid of the bodies.
Isn't
So-
Oliver Hazard Perry buried there? I thought they buried him.
No.
No, I don't think he was buried actually in the bay itself. I'm not too sure. Is it a cemetery in Erie?
He's died in New England.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He went on from the Battle of Lake Erie and got more rank and authority, and the Navy moved him on into.
Yeah, I mean, that's, his legacy as he won the War of 1812, where that happened was over in the western part of Lake Erie. His legacy actually helped create our country that we live in today. But there's a beautiful monument right here off that point for Perry, and Misery Bay is named after that year where the sailors suffered extreme hardship before, I think it was right before the War of 1812 that happened. Next one, please. Main Bay Flats. Main Bay Flats is probably the best area on the peninsula to catch smallmouth bass. The Main Bay Flats run from Misery Bay all the way over to the entrance of Marina Bay. And years ago, I don't know if anybody here remembers, but years ago, you could wade way the hell out there. You could wade out there about a quarter of a mile.
Past boats.
You could, boom, you could wade out.
Be out past boats.
You could wade out there a quarter of a mile on these beautiful sandbars and blind casts into these depressions and these darker green water areas and catch tons of fish. So the Main Bay Flats, I don't think you could wade out there. I'll get into the water levels here in a little bit, but to me, the Main Bay Flats were always the ideal place to have that saltwater wade fishing, fly fishing experience. Next one, please. Horseshoe Pond. Well, Horseshoe Pond, because it's small and it has a dark bottom, Horseshoe Pond, the water temperature in Horseshoe Pond actually warms up a lot quicker than the Main Bay. Different areas of Presque Peninsula and different areas of the bay, the water temperatures warm up a lot quicker than the rest of the bay. So Horseshoe Pond, it does get weeded up real quick, but we've even caught a lot of smallmouth in Horseshoe Pond early in the season, believe it or not. Mostly along the shoreline right here. But these smaller bays and lagoon areas, they warm up real quick. Warming water temperatures attract the warm water game fish, and that's where you want to fish early in the season. Another good early season hot spot, Horseshoe Pond. Outer beaches. The outer beaches to me are a summertime fly fishing destination. I don't see anybody fly fishing out on those outer beaches. but I'm gonna tell you about what they offer you to do in the summertime. When the bay's all weeded up, yeah, you got the largemouth fishery still going on. Where the northern pike go in the summer, I honestly don't know, because after mid-June, early July, I normally don't catch any northern pike. The largemouth bass fishing is usually pretty good in the early mornings and in the evenings in the summer. But I love to fly fish these outer beaches during the middle of the summer. Believe it or not, beach 1, beach 2, those areas, you can catch a lot of largemouth off those beaches farther on the western side of the peninsula. There's a lot of good structure on those outer beaches, and those are all those big breakwalls. Believe it or not, largemouths will actually migrate out of the bay, and if you go down by beach 10, and if there's a tree laying in Lake Erie, I can almost guarantee you're gonna find largemouth right underneath that tree. Next one. Let's go through species: largemouth bass, smallmouth bass. Guess what my favorite is? Northern pike. You know why I like northern pike?
They're big.
Well, yeah, northern pike are big. It's one of the biggest species you can catch on the bay. But the real true reason why I love northern pike is because my dad would take us to the French River in Canada when I was a little kid, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. And the smell of a northern pike, a lot of people say, ooh, they stink. No, to me, that smell of a northern pike makes me feel like a kid all over again, up in Canada, fishing with my brothers and my dad. So my love for northern pike supersedes any other fish you see right here. It's like being a kid again with my family up on the French River. Plus they hit hard and they pull really hard too. Oh, go back one, my bad. I'm sorry. Small northern pike, muskie, carp. The hardest fish to catch on Presque Bay is a carp. Bowfin, sheep's head, freshwater drum, panfish, and gar. Lots of things to fish for out there. There's one out here that we've actually caught on flies out there. Guess what it is? It's not on here, but guess what it is?
Walleye.
No, not in the bay. I'm not saying the walleye don't go in the bay, but I never caught a walleye outside Presque Bay.
I've caught steel off of the Liberty Pier.
I got panfish. Yes, steelhead are in the bay right here, right now. They're in there right now.
Yeah.
Anything else? Saha?
Catfish.
Catfish. Okay? Catfish. Bo. You think you can catch a channel catfish on Presque Bay?
Mm-hmm.
You can. Do you know what structure to look for? What?
Old truck tires.
Boom! Right there, baby. He's 100% correct. If you see an old tire on Presque Bay laying in the bottom, and it's May or early June, take a little natural clouser and jig it up and down in that tire and see what happens. Because a channel catfish is more than likely to eat that fly and take off and go into your backing. Big channel catfish are one of the few species that can get into your backing on Presque Bay. A bass ain't going to go into your backing. A northern ain't going to go into your backing. Muskie maybe. Carp for sure. Bowfin no. Sheephead no. Panfish no. Gar no. But channel catfish yes. Next one. Largemouth bass. Everybody grew up catching largemouth bass. The largemouth bass fishery in Presque Bay is world class. But that's not the reason why everybody fishes Presque Bay. Next one. Lagoons. I think I said earlier that the lagoons have the best topwater largemouth fishing I've ever had in my life. If you get back in the lagoons, to me, I mean, you can catch them on topwater all day, don't get me wrong. But to me, sunset is the best time to get it. Those last few hours of daylight. Next one. Smallmouth. That's the fish why everybody fishes Presque Bay. Smallmouth. Smallmouth invade Presque Bay. They absolutely invade Presque Bay. Why do they invade Presque Bay? Well, yeah, there's a lot of food in Presque Bay. The water warms in Presque Bay, but they come into Presque Bay for the main reason is to spawn. Now, everybody's like, well, a lot of these guys are fishing for bass on beds. If the water temperature is anywhere near 60 degrees, from 58 to 62 and above, they kind of tend to go out of the bay once that water gets over 70 and go out to the deeper water of Lake Erie. But once that water temperature gets up in the high 50s, low 60s, I don't care if you're fishing 4 feet of water, I don't care if you're fishing 8 feet of water, I don't care if you're fishing 12 feet of water, I don't care if you see them or not, 9 times out of 10 that fish is coming off of a bed. Now, have I seen a depletion of smallmouth bass in Presque Bay? No, I have not. There's so many darn fish out there. If you're wade fishing, you gotta be careful where you step. Because if you walking around and you go down into a hole, you just waded into a smallmouth bed. I guarantee you just did. So that's the main species everybody targets out there. I think bass are pretty stupid compared to a lot of other species, like, you know, steelhead and things like that. But it's definitely one of the most revered species on Presque Bay, because that's what everybody comes here to fish for. Next one. Catch lots of smallmouth wading and just plain blind casting. You don't have to see them to catch them. Don't think, oh, I gotta see a fish to catch it. You don't have to see a fish to catch it out there. Now, sight fishing is a lot of fun for all these species. I love to sight cast the big northern pike laid up on sandbars, sunning themselves. To me, that's one of the most exciting things to do out there. But guess where that is?
Thompson Bay.
Boom. Yeah. That's Tonson's Bay. Lots of great fish, wade fishing in Tonson's Bay. You got to be careful of drop-offs and currents that move in and out. Next one. There's me and Kathy Beck. You can see the algae was really getting real bad. That was a pretty late season trip. We didn't catch a lot, but we caught a couple. Next one. Smallmouths average 2 to 4 pounds, with 5 to 6 pounders are caught every season.
21 inches.
Yeah, you might see a couple. Yes, sir.
What time of the year do smallmouths come in to the bay?
As soon as they come in usually in April. They start migrating into the bay in April. You can catch them deep water with sink tips. I was just telling a couple of guys earlier where I used to go off of the Bay Harbor Marina piers early in April, and I'd throw spoons out there years ago for steelhead, and I would catch smallmouth bass in mid-April, early April. So mid-April, normally up until the first or second week of June. The last couple of years, once that water gets 70, 71, they're done spawning, they're out of there, they're back out in Lake Erie. Yep. After mid-June is the best smallmouth, the best smallmouth bass fishing will be found in the main lake. Lately, it seems that they seem to be migrating out of the bay when that cottonwood fluff hatch starts happening. When all that cottonwood starts coming down out on the peninsula and it gets in your leader and gets on your fly, and I hate fishing in that stuff, but it happens. Usually when that starts happening, when the cottonwood hatch, the cottonwood fluff hatch we can call it, I guess, I don't know. When that starts happening, the water temperature is probably pushing 70 degrees, and those fish will be done. They'll be heading right back out into the lake. We've occasionally caught some smallmouth in the mid-June, but with the way that these winters have been going, especially the last few years, with Presque Bay not even freezing over. I mean, I haven't ice fished Presque Bay in 10 years. I love ice fishing, but believe it or not. But I mean, I did it all the time up in New England. But with the bay not freezing anymore, we don't have like a real winter. So by mid-June, they're gone by the end of May, it seems like lately over the last couple of years. They're gone by the end of May. All depends on that water temperature. Next one, please. Northern pike, there's that fish that I love to catch. I love throwing big flies out there for northern pike. I don't care how many smallmouth bass you caught yesterday, I wanna catch one or two real big ones. I'll throw that big stuff out there all day long and strip the hell out of them to the point where I get grooves in my fingers, just waiting for that one big boom. And that one big boom makes my day. It's all I wanna do anymore. Kinda like swinging streamers for steelhead now. I've been tying all these big articulated streamers, and when you're swinging a big fly for steelhead and they eat that articulated streamer, it's nothing but violence unleashed at the end of your fly line. To me, a northern pike is violence unleashed at the end of your fly line. Go ahead and play with bass all you want. I want to catch northern pike. Yes?
Do you know of any instances of making long casts with a spey over in Presque Bay for northern pike?
I have not done that yet. I took a two-hander up to New England this past spring because I wanted to fish a two-hander for stripers, but we were catching so many fish without the two-hander that I never got around to doing that. Have I done it on the bay? No, I'll be the first to admit I haven't done it on the bay. Do I fish two-handers? Yeah, I like fishing two-handers. You can bomb a two-hander just as well as you can a shooting head with a single-hand fly rod. So as far as like people call a two-hander fly rod a spey rod, to me, I always was brought up to believe that there's two types of fly rods. There's a single-hand fly rod and there's a two-hand fly rod. You can spey cast with either or fly rod. Now everybody likes to do the two-hander, and I've kind of evolved a lot more over the last few years, fishing two-handers for steelhead because of that boom, violence unleashed at the end of your fly line. You know, I'm getting older, I'm not too worried about how many fish I catch anymore. To me, it's all about how I catch them. And I'll throw big stuff on Presque Bay all day long for one or two hits. Good sight fishing opportunities for pike actually start around mid-April to mid-June. Once you start getting sun on the water, we'll go back to some water temperatures. I was out on the boat last spring with a couple of friends, and we launched the boat in Misery Bay, and the water temperature only 47 degrees. I'm like, you guys fish. I'm not fishing for pike until that water's 52, when they'll become a little bit more active. Well, you can catch them in 47-degree water too. You don't have to wait till 52, because I watched them catch 3 or 4 fish, and then I said, okay, my turn, I'm on the bow now. So, especially when early spring, when you have the sun warming the water. I'm not saying you can't do it wade fishing, because you can, and I've done it in Thomas Bay, wade fishing, where you're walking along a sandbar and you look in the water and you see what looks like a log laying on a sandbar. Well, pike are like a reptile. You know, they want to warm their body early in the spring. And everybody thinks pike spawn right at ice out. They don't, because we've caught some real big ones off of Main Bay drop-offs that were full of eggs. But I like to run my boat along these sandbars and look for what I call laid up pike. Laid up pike, where I see something that looks like a log. Don't get the boat near it, or don't wade near it. Fish it like you think it's a fish. You know, cast in front of the head. Sometimes I like it slow, sometimes you gotta go real fast to trigger that predatory response. But you can actually sight fish for northern pike. Every now and again I'll see a muskie shallow. Doesn't happen a lot. Maybe once or twice a year I'll see muskies in kind of shallow laying around. But I think pike are like a reptile. They want to soak up that sun and warm that body. Excellent. Muskies, yeah, there's muskies in Presque Bay. I don't catch a lot of them. Caught some pretty big ones. But if you want success on muskies in Presque Bay, I think fly fishing is probably the hardest way to do it. Maybe the most challenging way to do it. It's not that I don't want to do it, but a lot of the real big fish I've seen from friends that are friends of other friends of mine, they catch them throwing gear or trolling, one or the other. I'll usually get some sight casting shots 2 or 3 times, or once or twice in the spring on the bay. And you got, if you see one, you wanna have a fly rod rigged up. Now normally the stuff I'm fishing for pike, it replicates to catching a muskie. Same tackle, 10-weight fly rods, intermediate or floating lines, or sink tips, it all depends where you find them. Mostly you're finding them in shallower water conditions, so floating line is fine. You wanna be prepared, because when you see one swimming by you and you're not ready for it, you're gonna miss an opportunity to catch it. Don't catch a lot of them. I think I've only caught 2 on the bay, to be honest with you. But they're there. Like I said, I see them every year.
East Avenue,
Ooh, I haven't tried that.
yeah. Yeah, where the old Coke plant was, a lot of that is wadeable.
So you're talking about right in the main bay, when you come through the channel around by the other boat launch there. East Ave
Outside of
boat launch.
Lampy.
I've never targeted them in there.
All along that beach that was, the Coke plant there, yeah.
I know that used to be a warm water discharge, and we used to catch a lot of brown trout there in the wintertime.
Right, and, yeah, it must be,
I'm gonna have to check that out, man. Thanks
Yeah.
for the tip. I appreciate it. I fished that. I've taken my boat in on that big rock jetty that leads into there, and to me that area was devoid of life. It was just a
Right.
hard packed sand bottom. I didn't see any weeds. I didn't see any bait fish. But that would be north of Lamping Marina.
right,
I haven't really taken my boat down into that area, but you can wade fish some of that water.
right.
Oh, awesome. Hey, thanks a
A
lot.
lot of it.
Yes, sir.
Make sure you wash your hands.
Yeah, it's kind of nasty.
No, seriously, that's the sewage discharge.
Yeah. Here's a muskie I caught in Marina Bay. Now, that's not a Great Lakes muskie. That's a tiger muskie. That's not a Great Lakes muskie. So maybe I've actually only caught one muskie on Presque. But muskies will hit the same flies that you use for pike. Now, I got a friend of mine that I take out on my boat every now and again, and he gives me muskie flies. So here's some muskie flies. Here's some muskie flies. Oh, sorry about that. Here's some muskie flies. Here's another muskie fly. All right, next one. Carp are the hardest fish to catch on a fly rod on Presque Bay. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. There's a lot of mudding carp in the head of the bay. And I don't necessarily think you want to wade the head of the bay, because I know that they've had to get rescue attempts on people that wade fish the head of the bay. I've actually waded the entire circle at the head of the bay. It's not easy. I almost got stuck a couple of times. But if you're looking for actively feeding carp that are mudding on the bottom, feeding on the bottom, the head of the bay is where I see most of that happen. Now, when I'm wading those main bay flats, you'll occasionally see carp cruising along on those main bay flats. You will see cruisers. Those cruisers are really, really, really hard to catch. I think we're going to see the next slide. Can you go to the next slide? Can you see what's hanging out of that carp's mouth right there? It's a black worm fly. Black woolly buggers and black worm flies. That worm fly is tied with, it's a black, sparkly kind of chenille stuff that we fold over and then twist to kind of form a tail, and then wrap it up the shank, and I got some little lead eyes on that. And I watched this carp just come right over, tip up, suck it in like a bowfish on the flats. Probably one of the heaviest fish you can catch on Presque Bay is probably going to be a carp too. I mean, I'm talking double digits, 15, 20 pounds. That fish obviously hadn't spawned yet. That's a 20-pound fish. Every day of the week, that's a 20-pound fish. Phenomenal fights. They don't have the intense speed of a steelhead when you stick them. It's more of a lumbering, oh my God, I can't even go and stop that one, you know, it's a lumbering.
It's like a
run.
bulldozer.
But they're extremely fun to catch, but it's probably hardest species on the bay actually get to eat your fly. There's places, I mean, this is on the main bay flats right here. Like I said, you're just casting the cruisers right there. The few places I see them actually feeding are the head of the bay. I've actually seen some carp kind of mudding and feeding out in front of 4 Mile Creek on the east side of town, on the main lake. But you don't see a lot of it when you're fishing the flats areas. There's places like on the east and west piers, the entrance to Marina Bay, I think you can target more carp there, because you'll see those carp in there kind of move shallow. Now, when they start spawning, when the male carp are driving those females up to the surface, and they're splashing all over the damn place, I don't think you're gonna be able to catch any of those. I've never been able to catch one, you know, where carp are spawning, where the male carp drives that female up to the surface, and they're exploding all over the place. I don't think you're gonna be able to catch those. Cruisers are real hard to catch. I just don't see, you know, I've read a lot about carp feeding on the Great Lakes. There's places in Michigan where they target them on the Great Lakes. I just have never, in all my years fishing out there, witnessed feeding carp. They're normally moving or spawning. Another thing to figure out on the bay. Bowfish. This fish has been around since the age of dinosaurs. Years and years ago, I wrote a bowfin article for the Erie Times News. The way I discovered bowfin on Presque Bay, and we're going way back, was I walked all the way around into Lagoon area and started wade fishing along a west-facing shoreline. There's like an island, a sand island out in the middle over there. I forget what trail it is, but there's a way to get back in there. And I was bass fishing, just wading along the shoreline, throwing poppers out there in the lagoons, and things would shoot out from the shoreline, scare the shit out of me. What the hell was that? And walked down, what the hell was that? And I thought that maybe they were northern pike that were in really shallow. I started slowing down and looking, and I started seeing bowfin. And I'm like, ooh, I've never caught a bowfin on a fly. I want to catch a bowfin on a fly. So I started fishing for them. The female bowfins they look like a big black anaconda snake. The male bowfin during spring, spawning season, their fins and their belly turns, do you remember, well, the older guys remember this. You remember that Mr. Yuck sticker your mom used to stick on stuff? That's what the body and the fins of pectoral fins of a bowfin look like. They look like that ugly lime green color of that Mr. Yuck sticker that you saw when you were a kid that your mother would put on bleach and stuff. They've been around since the age of the dinosaur. I found a bowfin skull one time back in lagoons, and that skull looked exactly like a T-Rex skull. They have terrible, nasty teeth, like a saltwater bluefish. But they will eat a fly. I gotta tell you this experience I had on the Peninsula last year. I'm driving out there. Do you know where that little pond is by the ranger station? There's that little pond, and there's a little inlet and outlet that goes in there from the bay. I stopped and saw some people fishing there, and I went up and talked to them, like, what are you fishing for here? Because I've heard of some pike going in there, and I've heard of some bass going in there. And I talked to him. He's throwing plugs. I'm like, well, what are you catching? He goes, I'm catching bowfin. I'm like, really? You're catching bowfin? He says, yeah. He whips out his cell phone and starts showing me pictures of bowfin that are eating plugs in that little pond. Now, they go in there to spawn, obviously, in that little pond there. Obviously, that water temperature is going to warm up a lot quicker than the main bay. The fact of the matter is, bowfin are the first species on Presque Bay to move shallow. They're the first species to move shallow. I'm talking knee deep or less. A great place to look for them is in the northern end of Thompson's Bay in those reeds. Sometimes you can see a big dark female swimming along. The males are normally back in not the cattails, there's this invasive species out there, Phragmites, that they've been trying to get rid of, the Phragmites out there. That Stinkhole Cove would be full of Phragmites, full of bowfin, absolutely full of bowfin. And you can sight fish for bowfin out there. I normally use wiggly bugger type of flies for them. They're a vicious fish. I got a video of a couple of hookups from this spring. First fish to move shallow. Nobody out there targets them. I mean, I know some people target them, but I don't think anybody around here targets them. So I like catching a dinosaur on a fly rod. It's fun. Next one. That's that lime green color I was talking about right there. That's a male bowfin. That's a black Beck's bugger hanging out of his mouth. I like those wiggly flies for bowfin. Bowfin are extremely predatory fish. There was one day I was walking along by the docks in Marina Bay, and I saw this big bowfin, big dark female bowfin. I threw a big black bunny bug in front of her and started stripping it, and she started chasing it right away. And I stripped it again, and my fly got stuck in one of those rocks, in that rocky riprap area. And she tried to grab it off of one of those rocks, and I yanked it right away from it. It's really, when you're watching fish chase flies, you're supposed to wait for them to turn before you set the hook. But I get a little excited like everybody else sometimes.
We saw one with a turtle. It had a turtle, and it was
No way!
fighting. Yeah. Yeah, it was fighting with this turtle trying to,
That's
I don't know,
crazy.
beat it up or whatever.
Now,
We watched it for about 10 minutes.
are the bowfin an invasive species on Erie
No.
like they are on Geneva? You're supposed to kill everyone you catch off of Geneva.
Bowfin are naturalized species in the Great
Okay.
Lakes. The first bowfin I ever caught were called dogfish down in Florida. We'd be like flipping for bass in the Dead Lakes area by Weehawken, Florida, which is it was east of Panama City Beach, where I was stationed. We'd be flipping rubber worms or jigs and pigs and thump, boom. Bowfin on plastics, they're very predatory fish. Like I said, those guys that are throwing plugs into that little area, that little pond, and they're catching bowfin. But basically, that's my buddy Jack. Basically, to me, that's bowfin habitat. We were talking about habitats for different species. That's bowfin habitat. And I know they've been trying to eradicate those Phragmites invasive plant species out there. These aren't those Phragmites. Those Phragmites look more like a small bamboo stalk to me. They look like a bamboo stalk. And that first cove you see heading out there, that Stinkhole Cove, used to be full of them. I haven't looked there lately, but that's back in the lagoons. The lagoons are great bowfin habitat. Next one, please. Sheephead. Who the heck wants to catch sheephead on a fly? Well, let me tell you, when you're out there trolling for walleyes, and boom, 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 it's probably a sheephead, not a walleye. They pull pretty gosh darn good. The best place I've ever had for fly fishing for sheephead is on those lakeside beaches. My favorite is Beach 10, where the sheephead will come into the first trough on the main lakeside, and you'll see them kind of grubbing around on the bottom. You can sight fish for those. Freshwater drum off the main lake beaches in the summertime. Next one. We don't catch too many sheephead blind casting. Occasionally I've actually caught one blind casting in the lagoons. But my favorite way to catch a sheephead on a fly rod is wading those main lake beaches. Because you'll see them cruising down the beach, just like a redfish. It's a freshwater drum, right? He's cruising down the beach, and then you see him kind of grubbing along the bottom. Those fish you can actually sight fish for. Next one, please. Sheephead. Who the heck wants to catch sheephead on a fly rod? Well, let me tell you, when you're out there trolling for walleyes, and boom, 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 it's probably a sheephead, not a walleye. They pull pretty gosh darn good. The best place I've ever had for fly fishing for sheephead is on those lakeside beaches. My favorite is Beach 10, where the sheephead will come into the first trough on the main lakeside, and you'll see them kind of grubbing around on the bottom. Those fish you can actually sight fish for. Best eating fish on Presque Bay, yellow perch, crappie, and bluegills. I still like catching them.
Sure.
I like to eat. Don't you? Next one. Springtime happiness is a bucket full of crappies.
Amen.
And if you got a buddy that works on the bayfront in any of those marinas, get in there and catch yourself a bucket. I try to catch at least 1 or 2 bucketfuls every spring.
So that's where people fish.
The other place where you're gonna catch more crappies, on the bay, on the peninsula, is, believe it or not, in that first part of the lagoons that go by the boat launch back in there, that cove over there, that cove gets polluted with some crappies. And just put a little marabou jig underneath the float, throw it out there and just kind of twitch it, let it sit. They go into the lagoons to spawn early, just like a lot of other species do, because that water warms up quick. Next one. Big bluegills. Okay, here's something I gotta tell you about. I have these guys that come in from Denmark every year to steelhead fish, and we had a day where the water was really, really low, and my buddy Jack took them out fly fishing on the peninsula in November. It was a nice calm day, nice and sunny, nice and calm, and they absolutely tore up the panfish. So, let's say you're a hardcore steelheader and the water conditions are terrible in the fall, go fish Presque Peninsula. Especially if you want to, nobody thinks about catching a lot of panfish in the fall on the peninsula, at least nobody I know does it. Anybody here know anybody that does it? I don't. But they went out there one day and had a blast catching panfish on a fly rod. And that's in Thompson's Bay. In November. Yellow perch on a shrimp fly. Yellow perch on a shrimp fly. These guys from Denmark are crazy. That is not Thompson's Bay. That is that stink hole sandbar that juts out into the bay.
Yep.
Nice size perch, hand size, eatable size.
What size fly was it?
Probably about an 8, I would think. About a size 8. That's actually a shrimp fly. Who's catching yellow perch on shrimp flies?
I caught one on a size 2 clouser.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I've caught them on clousers fishing for bass. And they're usually a nice big one too.
Yeah, I wanted to keep that.
And I throw one back, and then catch another, I'm like, oh, I should have kept that other one.
Exactly.
Yeah. So believe it or not, there is a fall panfish fly fishery on Presque Bay that nobody takes advantage of. It's crazy. Next one. Techniques: topwater, stripping clouser, minnows, or deceivers along habitat edges. Sight fishing, tackle, 7 to 9 weight fly rods. Floating weight forward fly lines cover almost everything, especially if you're wade fishing. Clear tip intermediate lines. And if you want to get fancy, you can use shooting head systems, which I use when I'm throwing big flies for pike out there. I used to always fish a clear tip intermediate right in front of Perry's Monument. And I actually caught more than once what I call a Presque Bay Grand Slam on a fly rod. You know they got saltwater Grand Slams, right? Well, what's a Presque Bay Grand Slam on a fly? A smallmouth, a largemouth, and a northern pike. You can catch a Grand Slam on the fly right off of Perry's Monument in the spring. Next one. There we're going through our fly selection. I think I talked a little bit about that. The clouser minnow will catch anything that swims in fresh water or salt water. Next one. Top water. I don't actually fish a lot of topwater fruit. I'm spitting. I didn't get it, did I? I get a little excited sometimes. I need a drink. I saw it though, like halfway that way.
I got my glasses on.
Thank you.
We'll edit that part out.
I know. Yeah, please do. I don't fish a lot of topwater for smallmouth for the simple reason that I catch most of them out of clouds or minnow. So like I told you earlier, the best topwater fishing in my lifetime, believe it or not, is topwater bass back in the lagoons. It's world class. It's unbelievable. Next one. That's back in the lagoons, wade fishing. I'm there at dusk. I think that's the best time to do it. I don't do it as much as I used to. The reason why I don't do it as much as I used to is because I'm usually out in the boat all day long. And by 5 o'clock, I want to go home and eat supper. I really, lately I've been kind of going back in time and doing things I used to do as far as fishing. Like I went back to Cape Cod. I go back to the Cat a few times this fall, went to fish some places I used to fish. And I need to start doing that again because it's an absolute blast. Now, hold on 1 second. One thing that I need to recommend when you're fishing topwaters back in the lagoons, I have a really bad propensity for when that fish goes boom, yank it right out of their mouth. I've yanked so many poppers out of the largemouth bass's mouth that I couldn't count. I don't know how many times I've done it in my lifetime. The explosion, you see, a lot of times you see the bulge of water and then the explosion. And I'd be, boom, oh, I yanked it right away from them. So you know what I started doing? I started doing what I call the no-look hook set. This is how I developed the no-look hook set because of yanking that popper out of their mouth. Okay, so I'm going to throw my popper out. Let the circles die a little bit. Go kaboom. I turn away and I won't look at it. I'm serious as a heart attack.
Yeah.
Okay? Throw it out there. Rings die. Go bloop. I won't look at it. Because then I'm reacting to the sound and not the visual explosion. It gives me an extra second for that fish to explode on it, start going down, and then I can hit it. I don't know if you're, I got that bad habit of yanking a lot of flies out of fish's mouths. Like I see a northern chase my fly and that big white mouth opens up and I yanked it out of his mouth.
Yeah.
I do it a lot. I hope I'm not the only one, but if you're back in the lagoons, throw it out. Bloop. Okay, now I have it. Because they went down with it. That's how I've kind of evolved into being able to hook a few more of them. No look hook set, wait for them to go down is my advice. Hard for me to do. Next one. Stripping clouds or minnows, best thing you do on Presque Bay, like we said, you catch everything out there stripping a clouds or minnow. Do that and you'll catch fish. I don't strip clousers in the lagoons. I don't strip clousers in the lagoons. It's too weedy. Next one. Sight fishing. I think I covered a lot of this already. I covered sight fishing for carp, northern pike, my favorite species. The cool thing, the neat thing I like about the bay is you can equate it with like sight fishing for bonefish on the flats. Presque Peninsula and Presque Bay is basically a freshwater, saltwater fly fishing experience, if you ask me. It's like being in Cape Cod. To me, the water color looks like Cape Cod. Wherever you see that dark green stuff, anything that's dark green, like you're fishing a creek for steelhead and you see dark water, fish it. Same thing on the bay. Dark water, fish it. But don't pass up any sight fishing opportunities as you're wading along. Ooh, there's a big log laying on the bottom of the sandbar. You can actually see bass actually blitz on Presque Bay. Bass will blitz emerald shiners on Presque Bay. So there's a lot of sight fishing opportunities that are out there. And here I am getting ready to fall off that poling platform, which is why I'm glad my buddy Robbie bought that boat away from me. Flies, poppers, steelhead bugs, clouds or minnows, deceivers, bunny bugs. I got a bunch of deceivers here. A bunny bug is probably the best fly you can throw for northern pike out there. It's certainly one of my best flies for pike. That bunny strip, when it's wet, it undulates through the water. The action of that rabbit strip undulating through the water, it's just a thing of beauty. So I catch most of my pike on that. Not that you can't catch them on deceivers. Lately, because I want to catch really big pike, I'm kind of up my fly size. That's actually a small one. That's a reverse bucktail. These cats really nice. You want to go for big ones. I like fishing those ones with the muddler head on it. Big fat muddler head on it. Now, I do want these back, please.
Don't check my pockets.
No, just the last two I threw out. Next one, please. Deer hair bass bugs. A lot of people don't fish deer hair bass bugs. I don't know why. It's classic. I mean, you know, I love a popper, but deer hair bass bugs, it's like going back in time to fish a deer hair bass bug. So, you know, I love a hard body popper too, but sometimes you want to be a little nostalgic. Yes, Denny?
Oh, you fish any gurglers? Gurgler style?
You know what? I don't fish gurglers, and I know all about it. I went striper fishing on the Cape Cod, and I didn't even fish a gurgler. Tell me about it.
No, I was gonna ask you if it was a fly you prefer to fly, to fish or not, or if you had any luck.
I've actually, believe it or not, never fished a gurgler on Presque. Tell me about it. That's a Dahlberg diver, which is kind of like a gurgler, I guess. I mean, Dahlberg divers are great out there. But I've obviously never fished a gurgler. Listen, we're all evolving. I got to do new things too. Next one. Clouds and minnows catches everything. Next one. There's a nice selection of clouds and minnows there. I like chartreuse and yellow. I think the best color you can throw on Presque Bay is chartreuse and yellow. I mean, it doesn't look exactly like a perch. It doesn't look exactly like anything that lives out there. But chartreuse and yellow is my favorite. I mean, everybody chartreuse over white. Everybody always fishes chartreuse over white. Throw a little orange in there to make it look like a perch. You know, you can't go wrong with any of that stuff. Even all white works good out there. I think I showed a video of that big gizzard shad kill that's going on out there right now, so all white will work. I don't fish a lot of black. I love black for pike, but I don't fish a lot of black for smallmouth. Sometimes I'll switch to black if I can't catch them on a regular color.
For the most part, Carl, with those clouders, you fishing the floating line?
Yes. Yeah, most of my fishing on Presque Bay, unless I'm throwing really big shit for pike or muskie, is almost all with a wake for floating flat.
Now, when you get into the lake, intermediate or heavy sink depth?
It depends how deep the water is. I mean, intermediate works great in the bay, but once those weeds start coming up, you're going to start hooking into a lot of weeds if you're just blind casting and stripping clousers. When I'm fishing, you know, big game on the bay, I'm fishing a pretty fast sinking shooting head or an intermediate shooting head looped to a fly line. Because those big bulky flies don't get down as quick. So I'm using saltwater techniques. I'm using them with freshwater to catch freshwater species. Deceivers catch everything that swims out there too, maybe not quite as many as a clouser. A deceiver doesn't have that nice jigging action that a clouser has, but they work real good. There's a bunch of deceivers in here. Next one. Bunny bugs. Bunny bug is, I think, the best thing you could throw out there for northerns. I'm not fishing bunny bugs as much as I used to, just because it's like casting a wet rag. They become waterlogged and they become very hard to cast. Fantastic undulation action through the water, but it's bulky, it's wet, it's heavy, it's a pain in the ass to cast. I'm not fishing bunny bugs as much as I used to. Maybe I need to go back to doing that some more. That's a double bunny bug with 2 rabbit strips actually glued together. Right here, that gets even more wet, but they look really, really good. If anybody has that book, Northern Pike on the Fly, he'll tell you that bunny bug, a black bunny bug, is his best fly too. And that's the reason why I started fishing them out there. Next one. Okay, let's go through the seasons. Spring, ice out to early May, steelhead, entire bay, northern pike, lagoons, head of the bay. Largemouth bass, lagoons, Marina Bay, Misery Bay, and the head of the bay. That's because those areas of the bay warm up first and draw the fish in first. April to early May, smallmouth, main bay, deep channels, troughs, and drop-offs in 8 to 20 feet of water. They stage in these deeper areas before they move up in the shallower water to spawn. I think I told you about throwing spoons off of Bay Harbor Marina. That water in front of Bay Harbor Marina is like 14 feet deep. Obviously, if you want to try to catch those fish with the fly, you got to use sinking lines. Bowfin, all over the lagoons, late April, early May. There's Robbie with the bowfin. That's back in the lagoons.
I know. There's old one out there.
Steel, yeah, you don't want to get your fingers near that mouth. Yeah, yeah. Steelhead, move out to Main Bay. Steelhead move up to the main lake as the water gets near 60. Northern pike and muskie drop out of lagoons into Marina Bay and Misery Bay and Main Bay weed lines. The biggest pike I catch on the bay are normally off those Main Bay drop-offs, and we'll go through a map here in a minute and I'll show you where. Largemouth, May to mid-June, largemouth all over the place, smallmouth all over the place. Although right now, because I put this together a few years back, usually by that first week of mid-June, lately, they're gone. Lately, they're gone. Next one. There's a nice smallmouth my buddy Jack caught. Believe it or not, this is on the Main Bay. It's by the pump house. There's a lot of trees laying down in the water by the pump house. And wherever you have an area that has no structure, no weed bed, no weed line, none of that stuff that attract game fish, if you got wood laying in the water, you gotta fish it. Next one. Summertime, mid-June through early July, bass move to cooler water and deep weed lines near the channel and Lake Erie. Like I said, you can catch largemouth bass off of Beach 1, off of Beach 2, off of Beach 10 in the summertime. I used to sneak out on those break walls early in the morning before the lifeguards got there.
Yep.
Caught a lot of largemouth doing that. You can even catch smallmouth doing that. Early morning, late evening, best fishing in the summertime. Fish begin to blitz bait. Who out there has seen bass blitzing bait?
Oh, yeah.
Bass, white bass, largemouth bass, and smallmouth bass eat emerald shiners just like, now the blitzes aren't as big. They're like boom, 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 boom over here. And then boom, 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 boom over there. They're not as big blitzes as I see on saltwater, but freshwater fish blitz those emerald shiners. Oh no, these ones I gave away. Here, have one. Here, have one. There's only 2 I wanted back. There were only 2 I wanted. That mother had I wanted back. No, those ones I was throwing in for you fellas. I told you, a buddy of mine tried those for muskies, and now you guys got a couple of muskie flies. So yeah, those blitzes kind of happen. I mean, I've seen those blitzes happen in Thompson's Bay, like in July. And it's largemouth bass blitzing emerald shiners. On the Main Bay, near the end of smallmouth season, there's smallmouth that are blowing up on emerald shiners. It happens earlier in the spring, but it's more of a summertime activity. And plus, I don't think I talked about white bass, but a lot of white bass have been moving into the bay lately. I used to catch tons of white bass. Here I go again. You missed that one, didn't you? I used to catch lots of white bass blitzing bait outside the channel on the main lake side. I haven't seen that happen in a couple of years.
Yeah, grew up
So like everything else, everything changes. Next one, please. July through August, outer beaches. I keep talking about those outer beaches. Nobody fly fishes those outer beaches. I'm not saying you're going to catch 20 freaking bass out there, but the fish are there. Main lake rock piles, jetties attract bait fish and bass. Sight casting with freshwater jum, sheephead, and carp. Next one. When it gets a little rough like that out there, it's kind of hard to do. I don't recommend going out there when there's like a north wind hitting those main lake beach sides. I like fishing those main lake beaches early in the morning or late in the evening, but not when there's 2 or 3 foot breakers hitting the shore. I'd rather fish for steelhead off the beach with breakers hitting the shore than bass. I think that's not what I would call a great condition to catch largemouths or anything like that. I'd rather do that for steelhead. Next one. Early evenings and early mornings are best for fly fishing in the summer. That actually was on the front cover of Fly Fisherman one year. Sunset in the lagoons. If you haven't done it, go do it. Next. Here's I think that's Kathy Beck off that beaver tail I used to have. Sunset on the bay. I don't do it like I used to do it, so I gotta do it some more. And if you can look at me, I'm kind of looking a little shaky up there, kind of holding on for dear life. I don't do that anymore. I like that remote control, that doink, right there. Next. Okay, let's talk about Presque Bay hotspots. I'm coughing it all up for you people. I hope you know this. I'm getting on this side. So we're going to work from west to east. Head of the bay. Great early season spot. Mudding carp up in the head of the bay. I saw a muskie up in the head of the bay this past spring. We didn't catch it, but I saw one in there. Pike, head of the bay. Great early spring pike spot. Don't try to wade it. Take a float tube in there if you don't have a boat. Let's come up to the sinkhole area. That cove right there, largemouth go in that cove. That's sandbar that juts out there by the sinkhole is a really, really good spot to fish. There's some underwater structure, like there used to be old docks there. There's some wooden structure in there that attracts largemouth. And you can wade all the way out on that point, and there's a real nice drop off all along the edge of that. Great spot. Here's a cove in that sinkhole area. That gets deep kind of quick in there, but it's pretty hard bottom wading. The lily ponds, that place I already talked about, that by the park office. Niagara Boat Launch. You can sight fish or catch northern pike right off the Niagara Boat Launch. I've seen pike laid up in the channel on that sandbar right near the entrance of it, on the far side of it. Where those docks are, you can catch lots of northern pike throwing flies in there. My buddy Ryan Levatnik was throwing a clouser minnow in there last spring. Probably caught like 5 of them in the early season, throwing a chartreuse over yellow clouser. I was throwing real big stuff and he caught a lot more fish than I did. We keep coming out here, well, the ferry dock, same thing.
Yeah. Between the two.
We're coming over here. I call this area, you know where the pump house is? The pump house over by Marina Bay. I call those the pump house flats. Great smallmouth area. Marina Bay. You catch almost all species in Marina Bay. I don't see a lot of smallmouth up in the upper end of Marina Bay, but sometimes you'll find some at the entrance to Marina Bay. Main Bay Flats from the East Pier to Perry's Monument. Main Bay Flats is like heaven on earth. out there. Like I said, we used to be able to wade way the hell out there. We can't anymore. I forgot to talk about the high water levels. Since 2020, we've, what's that, what date did I write in here? Yeah, since 2020, we've had really high water levels on Presque, on Lake Erie and Presque Bay, which is really sucks because it's kind of ruined the wade fishing because you just can't get the places. You can't get on these sandbars like we used to. We just can't get there anymore. But what does that do? Well, instead of coming halfway out on those main bay flats, they're in that first trough right off the road right there. So there's some good and bad things about it. I miss wading way the hell out there. Perry's Monument, you can catch everything off the tip of Perry's Monument because what is it? It's a point jutting out into the main bay and in the Misery Bay. You catch everything there. Lagoons, I've covered that, fantastic fishing. Misery Bay, excellent fishing. Horseshoe Pond, great early season spot. And then we'll get over into Beach 11. The way I found out that the fishing was going to be really good off of Beach 11 was I was out there swimming one day in early June. This is when, you know, the water would, you know, get a little over 70 degrees. I started seeing bass swimming around all over the place. Right in front of Beach 11, where the lifeguard stands are, is a very good spot to catch northern pike on a fly rod. Don't do it when the lifeguards are there because they'll yell at you. In fact, I got a story about this. So the rule on Presque Bay is that you can't fish within 100 feet away from a designated lifeguard area where they got their buoy, right? So remember I was telling you about fishing the main lake in the summertime? I'd be fishing like Beach 1, Beach 2 area for bass. I mean, dude, you can see them swimming around out there. And lifeguard blowing the whistle at me, blowing the whistle at me, blowing the whistle at me. Get out of there. I'm like, I'm fishing. I'm not breaking any law. I'm over 100 feet away from a designated swimming area. So what do the young kid lifeguards do? They call the man. And the man drives out there on his four-wheeler. Woo, 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 woo. The lifeguards are saying that you're fishing in the swimming. I'm like, no, I'm not fishing in the swimming area. I'm 100 feet away from a designated swimming area. It's like a landowner trying to throw me off a beach on Lake Erie. Lake Erie is a navigable waterway used for public commerce. I have right-of-way access to the high water mark. Don't get me going on this. Okay? I'm standing on Lake Erie. I have absolute right, because it's a waterway used for public commerce to the high water mark. Now, where that high water mark is, you know, you might not be totally sure where it is, but if your feet are wet, you're legal as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, this guy tried to throw me out of there, but I'm like, I'm not breaking any laws. I've had lots of people try to throw me off the beaches.
Been dragged off a few.
And it's actually gotten me some extremely easy access, I'll put it that way. But because some of these people are lawyers, and no, I know what the law is. But you're trespassing. No. What happens is they usually call a state police guy. State police guy don't know the law. Next thing they call is a waterways conservation officer. Waterways conservation officer comes down, says, Carl, how did you get here? Well, I came down this way, I came down this way, I came down this way. I have yet to be arrested. So don't let anybody try to throw you off of Lake Erie Beach. Next one. Oh, I think I covered all that, right?
Yeah.
I've covered everything on that slide. Any questions? Yes, sir.
When you're saying about working the lagoons, do you have like a favorite area of the lagoons? Like, are you more towards Long Pond or over towards?
I like the Long Pond area because I think that water's a little deeper. But you know where the short bridge crosses the lagoons?
Right.
Really good bowfin habitat where that short bridge is. And if I can get my boat up underneath that bridge, which I haven't been able to do for a long time,
Right.
I go over to the right, there's some trails that go back in
Sure.
there.
Long Pond Trail.
That area gets polluted with largemouth bass, where all those lily pads are.
And crappie.
Polluted with largemouth bass.
Crappie.
And crappie.
Yep.
And
Fair
crappie.
waiting. I know, that's what I'm gonna look at today.
Next one, please. All right, I think I'm done. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Do you ever target smallmouth in deep water in the lake?
I think I had a slide up there, when the bass are all out of the bay, yes, I do. First of all, the answer is yes. I'm using, Cortland Kerplunk shooting heads, which is a nylon coated lead core shooting head, and I'm fishing, 10 to 20 feet. And the best lake smallmouth bass fishing, if you were to ask me, is out of Northeast Marina. Oh, I see you smiling and nodding. You know that too. That the structure, you look at that structure, and you're like, this is the best smallmouth habitat I've seen in my life. There's boulders the size of cars. I've even seen a lot of channel catfish running my boat out of Northeast Marina. I've seen some really nice channel catfish running by. I didn't catch any there, but I caught them out of tires before. But yeah, deep water. A buddy of mine, his parents used to have a house right on the New York, Pennsylvania line. We take a ladder down the bluff to the beach, and we go out and float tubes. So yeah, can you do it? Yeah. Be honest with you, it's a lot easier with a spinning rod.
What size rod and line are you using on this?
This, if I'm throwing big stuff, I'm throwing a 10. I even have 11 weights.
How long is the rod?
9 foot. I fish mostly 9 foot. Yes, sir.
You said on your new boat, you have an electrical, you talking about a trolling motor?
Yeah, I have a, I'm sorry, I didn't say that. I have a Minn Kota riptide, 70-pound thrust, saltwater, Minn Kota. So instead of trying to do this stuff, which I did one summer, and I said, I'm not doing it.
Is that a 24 volt or a 12 volt?
It's a 24 volt, yes, sir. I got 2 batteries. You gotta be real careful when you charge those batteries. I've ruined a lot of batteries. Yeah, automatic. Anything else?